Welcome to the 164th broadcast of the T-Roh Show. This is your host, Keith. This is on January 18th, 2020. So, reason why I'm basing this on the date is because of the Virginia deal. There's a lot going on in the Virginia thing. I'm not going to go too much into it, but I'm going to show you who the culprit is. We have exactly who's doing this whole deal. So, and proof of it, of course. So what we want to do is, or what I want to do is look at some of the a photo that was sent to me. It's Amanda Chase. She says she's apparently a senator. Sadly, I am posting this knowing that the governor of Virginia has declared a state of emergency in our state. I want you to be aware of how we are being set up. And you're hearing this out of a senator now, so it's getting pretty bad when they start opening their mouths. Does the Patriot Act ring a bell? Okay, so they're still working under that Patriot Act, and that's why they, when it expired, they renewed it for another 3 months. But why the 90 days? Well, now we know why the 90 days. Does the National Defense Authorization Act ring a bell? If people show up wearing any kind of uniform, patch, or other symbol on their clothing, signifying they belong to a militia, and something goes wrong, you will be held as a domestic terrorist. And they basically can shoot you on sight, just letting you know. If anyone steps out of line, all it takes is one person. It may even be a government plant. Now you're hearing that from a senator now. If that plant does anything to disrupt the rally, you will be arrested as a domestic terrorist. The governor, using the media, has already set the stage for this to happen, and he absolutely has. Okay, when they get all syrupy with you, and the main thing is, you hear this with this certain tone that they have. They come along and is the public safety. We got to do the public. This is the reason why we're clamping down here. It's because for your own good, for your own safety. That's what communists do. We're doing this for you. Well, Northam doesn't give a damn about anybody else but himself. That's why he's got all the police up there. He's protecting his own ass. He don't care about anybody. And everybody knows that. So when they start clamping down because of the public safety, you got a totalitarian party on your hands and a totalitarian dictatorship in Virginia. Okay, the governor, so he has already laid the groundwork to make sure the entire movement looked like insurrection. It will be used to put the rest of the nation on notice of what will happen to you if you resist. They have used the Southern Poverty Law Center over the last 15 years to lay the groundwork. And they absolutely have. And by the way, that's a communist organization. And I did attend the trial for the Southern Poverty Law Center. It went very, very well. And SPLC is going to have a very hard time this year. They have labeled us as a potential domestic terrorist for a long time now. That's coming from Senator Amanda Chase. So keep in mind, that's what's going on. So now, what I and others have been going through for the past, say, 30 years, now it's everybody else. Now we're not such weirdos anymore, huh? Or such dangerous people. Now you're getting it. You will get it if you don't yet. That what it feels like to be accused of being a domestic terrorist without a trial and on lists and all this kind of crap. It's not fun. But now you're in our boat. Our wagon is hitched to yours. And that's the way it works. Okay, please keep in mind that we have a lot of stories on the T-Roh Show that you really need to pay attention to. The one I just put in, I've been putting up the softening up the enemy. That's you, by the way, the enemy. I'm talking about anybody listening to this that's not on the international terrorist side, which would be the Dems and the bankers. Said this is what the state of Texas does when you won't give up your rights to your children. And we've talked about the Graham Lasik case. Believe it or not, that thing's still going on. And what they did now was they put him in a state hospital, and now they have an order, and there's a tape there. They have an order to put him on 29 different pills because apparently he's psychotic. And really, what they want, and we've listened to a lot of the tapes, what they really want is him to give up his son, and he writes to his son. That's all this is about. They've kept him in jail for like, I don't know, 7 or 8 months. Have tortured this man and everything else, just so he'll give up the rights to his son. That's it. That's all this is about. And now they're going to killing him. They're going to murder him soon if something isn't done. He's in a hospital. You'll hear it in the background. They put him in the state hospital. And all it is, that's all it is. It's nothing about his status, nothing about who he is or anything like that. It's just all they want. And you can hear the frustration in the criminal's court, and the criminal judge, and you can hear it in his voice, his frustration. He's pissed off, and so is everybody else because he won't give up the rights to his son. And that's it. That's all it is. So they'll do anything to break families up, just letting you know, especially in the state of Texas. So, and the softening up of the enemy, or softening up the enemy, is a series that we're doing. It's part 15 here, and this goes from the Rain Bulletin, and it forwards to over here, and it gets pretty deep into how you're being attacked on a daily basis. Okay, I've been asked to go over a specific a document, and to basically let people know exactly what's going on. I personally, okay, believe a grand jury has everything to do with a Masonic lodge. That's my personal beliefs. I don't think it should be called a grand jury. I think it should be called a great jury. That's the actual true American common law. The grand jury was something that the Masons created. So I believe it resides with them. You're gonna hear a little bit of a history on this and what happened, okay, way back when in 1946. For those who have not heard this, it's going to be interesting to you. Those who have heard it, you're going to hear a little bit of a different take on it, on what's going on since 1946. However, the action, regardless of what I believe on grand juries, or what the traditions are on it, on the state and what they call federal level, you're going to see some serious treachery going on here, and you're going to see where everything went wrong, as to why Governor Northam is not sitting in jail, and why Hillary is not sitting in jail, and why anybody else is not sitting in jail. I was listening to a report, and it was coming from a state trooper from the state of Virginia, and he said, "Look, folks," he says, "these people belong in jail." He's telling everybody they belong in jail. If the people don't arrest them, I'm going to follow what they're saying, and I'm going to come and get your guns. So what he's trying to tell you is, if you don't stand up and do anything and start arresting these people, and I mean Northam should have been arrested weeks ago. Pelosi should have been gone weeks ago in jail. Hillary should have been, who by the way is described as a serial killer by Alexa, of killing over 100 people. And Alexa even says, that's that little Google computer thing, has how she has Hillary listed, that the corrupt system still won't prosecute her. So guess what, folks? It's a corrupt system. The whole thing is corrupt. That's coming from a freaking Google thing. They're telling you that. Everybody's telling you this. And still, no arrests. So there's a group of people that have been trying to reverse this for a long time. I don't think that they've even gotten close to doing it correctly. But the offer's there to help them out if they want it. I believe the group is called National Liberty Alliance, and we tried to help them a long while ago, and obviously they won't accept any type of help. I think they're putting up grand juries all over the place, and every time they do, they get busted. They can't figure out why. Why do they get busted? So we can fix the problem. I don't expect any of them to actually accept the help because of ego or whatever. I think one of them even tried to blame me personally for their failure in the grand jury deal. And when you can't take responsibility for your own failures, then you're not a man. That's all there is to it. You're still a boy. And when if you're failing, it's because you have zero clue what you're doing. So a lot of these guys they've been trying to get the grand juries set up and everything, and do all their indictments and everything else, and everybody calls them rogue and all that. That's because they don't know their whole history as to why they're failing. Okay, they don't have the status. They were kicked out of it, and they got to fix that first before they can do any kind of grand jury. But what the hell do I know, right? But I'm still not taking responsibility. I'm rebuking anything they say in the name of Jesus, because it's all false. As far as blaming me personally for their failures, they failed because they failed to humble themselves and listen to the Most High as to what He was trying to tell them. I listened and I followed. And that's how it works. So what happened was, let's get into the meat of this. I'll read you a couple of things here. 1902, the Minneapolis grand jury, on its own initiative, hired. This is 16 pages long, folks, so I'm not going to read this whole thing to you. Its own initiative hired private detectives and collected enough evidence to indict the mayor and force the police chief to resign. The same grand jury virtually governed the city until a new administration could be hired. Similar events occurred in San Francisco 5 years later, when a grand jury indicted the mayor and replaced him. There you go. You see, Governor Northam needs to be indicted by a grand jury of the people. But we're going to show you why that isn't happening right now and what's really going on. But beginning about 1910 or so, the grand jury ceased to operate so independently, as the government began to regulate the grand jury more and more, and grand juries became captured. Now, what was that? Oh, well, that was after the Bar Association. The practice of allowing a prosecutor to investigate crime allegations and then present his evidence for indictment before a grand jury became routine and evolved into such standard practice. By the end of the 19th century, it had become a part of a normal grand jury operations. While previously the prosecutor often did not get a case until after indictment, now he was frequently allowed to present evidence before the grand jury personally. So he's not supposed to be able to do that. By the turn of the 20th century, according to one commentator, with the prosecutor inside the grand jury room, the purposes of grand jury secrecy were no longer apparent. So as the grand jury slowly lost its full historic purpose, grand juries became resigned to a minute corner of the American justice system. American grand juries ceased to initiate their own investigations. Dramatic, sometimes violent confrontations between grand juries and the prosecutors, politicians, legislatures, even within the grand juries themselves, became largely things of the past by about the 1930s. During this period of the grand jury's slow decline in the states, federal grand juries became, ironically, more important. Now, folks, keep in mind, I'm just a little commentary here. I've seen lawyers claim that they've gone to grand juries. They didn't go to anything. There's no minutes of the grand jury. So you got to go check the minutes out in a case. There's no minutes to that because it never happened. They just say they went to a grand jury. And then they sign it. They sign the indictment. There was no grand jury. There was no evidence presented to 26 people. Nothing. They just made it up. I've seen that I don't know how many times. Because we asked for the minutes. Where's the minutes for the grand jury? Nothing. Don't hear, it's freaking crickets. Okay? So, although federal grand juries have been a rather obscure element of American criminal procedure before the 20th century, they stood poised to explode in importance due to increase of federal criminal jurisdiction by the turn of the century. The growing importance of federal grand juries came at the precise historic moment when the state models for grand juries were becoming more and more limited. Okay, I wonder who was doing that. Freaking lawyers were doing it. In fact, because federal grand jury practice looked by necessity to state grand juries as models for federal procedure, the resulting model for federal grand jury proceedings was actually a mere shell of the model intended by the framers. Okay, they always say the framers. It's all BS. There were no framers there. This is why I don't personally think this is a Mason thing, because the Constitution was passed in secret, and you can't do that. There was no popular vote for it. Okay, so it's still a private organization. It always has been. So from the ratification of the Bill of Rights, there was no ratification. That was all made up. It was only a private thing going on in 1789 up until some extent beyond its codification in the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure. Listen to that. Up until and to some extent beyond its codification in the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure, a federal grand jury practice went from the most part unregulated by statute. This was due to the limited constitutional jurisdiction of the federal company and to the scarcity of federal statutes governing criminal justice, a domain traditionally reserved to the states. In its traditional form, the citizen grand jury had come to be seen as an inefficient, unnecessary, and possibly dangerous phenomenon. Ultimately, a combination of judicial activism, executive contempt, and legislative apathy left the federal grand jury, weakened and contained before it had a chance to truly roam free. And here is where the problem lies. So you guys that are working with that organization, dealing with grand juries, this is where your problem is. It's not our problem. This would be your problem. We can fix this problem, but you really have to start listening to what we're saying to you. Okay. 1946 enactment of the federal rules. In 1946, the federal rules of criminal procedure were adopted, codifying what had previously been a vastly divergent set of common law procedural rules and regional customs. In general, an effort was made to conform the rules to the contemporary state of federal criminal practice. In the area of federal grand jury practice, however, a remarkable exception was allowed. The drafters of Rules 6 and 7, which loosely governed federal grand juries, denied future generations of what had been well-recognized powers of common law grand juries, powers of unrestrained investigation and of independent declaration of findings. The committee that drafted the federal rules of criminal procedure provided no outlet for any document other than a prosecutor-signed indictment. Now, what are prosecutors? Lawyers. Okay, that's down here. So, prosecutor-signed indictment. In so doing, the drafters, at least tacitly, if not affirmatively, opted to ignore explicit constitutional language. Okay, so what did you do? You allowed the people's grand juries to be placed in the hands of a private membership association called American Bar Association and state bar associations. And then they gave it to their prosecutors. So now the prosecutors within this organization, which is private, by the way, it's a freaking club. That's all it is. It's like the Teamsters. I mean, it's just a club. It could be the Playboy Club. Same difference. Okay. You gave the prosecutors the power of the grand jury, or it was stolen by them under rules. Let's put that in quotation marks. And then gave them the power over the police. So what do you got? You have little fiefdoms, little dictators all over the country. being ruled and open for massive corruption by a bunch of people that were never elected to office. And therein is your problem. Okay. The your Fifth Amendment in your private club constitution over there requires no person shall be held to answer for capital or otherwise infamous crime except by a presentment or indictment above a grand jury. Well, hell, they do that all the time. With all authorities recognized as a presentment, however, has been written out of law and no longer recognized by the federal judiciary. They don't. They don't. It went so far they don't even recognize presentments anymore. A presentment is a grand jury communication to the public concerning the grand jury's investigation. It has traditionally been an avenue for expressing grievances of the people against government. In early American common law, the presentment was a customary way for grand juries to accuse public employees or officials of misconduct, while an indictment was normally thought to be invalid without the signature of a government prosecutor. A presentment required no formal assent of any entity outside the grand jury. In early America, the presentment was thought to be an indictment without a prosecutor's signature and a mandate to a district attorney to initiate a prosecution. That's right. So what it is you've got the janitor is now running the show. See, when there was a grand jury there and an indictment, the prosecutor needs to step and fetch it. Let's go. Get your prosecution going, buddy, because that's what we told you to do. Now, guess what? You present any evidence to him, he decides whether it's going to be prosecuted or not. What the hell is that? That's a joke of a system. Now look at the timeline. 1946, 1947, 1948, Bar Treaty came in. 1954, the bulwark of the Communist Party, that being the National Lawyers Guild, which was the bulwark of the Communist Party. So where did all this come from? Where are they so-called getting this authority? Well, it's all coming from the United Nations, folks. Say presentment is generally drafted from the knowledge and findings of jurors themselves rather than the prosecutor. It's signed individually by each juror who agrees with it. That's pretty heavy. A presentment at common law stood public with or without approval of a prosecutor or court. Early days of a republic, which is it's a loose term in this particular situation, the Attorney General hinted that a federal prosecutor was obligated to indict upon the presentment of a grand jury. Thus, Rule 6 represented a monumental and deliberate change of grand jury practice. Orfield's peculiar use of the term runaway grand jury, as a committee notes, may mark both the advent of this term into the legal lexicon and the loss to history of true grand jury independence. See, when you lost that, folks, you lost everything. You don't have any judicial authority. That's the problem. It was ripped from you. So you always rely on a lawyer to do everything. Well, I'll go to a lawyer, make sure this is done correctly. Man, you just gave everybody your freaking judicial authority. Why do you keep doing that? To a private membership association, some freaking club. Like I said, just go give it to the Playboy Club. This would be better for you. Okay, let's see what some district judges say about this whole grand jury joke. Today, the grand jury is a total captive of the prosecutor, wrote one Illinois district judge, who, if he is candid, will concede that he can indict anybody at any time for almost anything before any grand jury. The Supreme Court Justice William Douglas wrote in 1973 that it was common knowledge that the grand jury, having been conceived as the bulwark between the citizen and the government, is now a tool of the executive. At least, see, now what I'm telling you here is this, and what they're saying is conceived as a bulwark between the citizen and the government is now a tool of the executive. All right, that's a human rights violation right there. That's the first thing that you're working on. And we'll go back to that in a second. I'll show you where that's a human rights violation. Okay. Now, at least one scholar has suggested that the problem of the grand jury subordination may be so institutionalized that its very structure violates due process. Yeah, you'd think, yeah. The critics are unanimous in their condemnation of the modern grand jury process as little as more than an elaborate ritual used only to justify by ceremony the decisions of the government. So commentators only disagree on whether the term grand jury, the prosecutor's indictment mill, rubber stamp, or a tool or play toy. And that's exactly what it is. They have made a mockery of law. Those that have decided that law is going to be their craft, they made a mockery of it, a mockery of justice, and a mockery of due process. Okay, so if it's supposed to be between your citizens and the government, is now a tool of the executive. That's right here in this section right here. So I'm not making it up. Okay, so here we go with the human rights violations that are being violated by the rules that were put in place in 1946 in all the courts. The will of the people shall be the basis of the authority of government, not the will of a prosecutor, not the will of a lawyer. I don't give a damn if you've been to college or not. You still have never read the Law of Nations, and you have no freaking understanding of it. And you don't know how to build a country. Because I've talked to most of you lawyers, and any of you read the Law of Nations. All of you said no. So it's beyond your understanding as to how to run a country and what the rules are. You're useless to anybody if you haven't read the Law of Nations. The will of the people shall be the basis of the authority of government, and this will shall be expressed in periodic and genuine elections, which are not here, by the way, because it's been reported that 40 million new votes have been added, 40 million by the Chinese, all with the help of who? The lawyers. Okay, which shall be by universe and equal suffrage, and shall be held by secret vote or by equivalent of free voting procedures, right here. Okay, everyone has the right to take part in the government of his country. Now, directly or through freely chosen representatives, not forced chosen representatives. Not, we're going to appoint a freaking lawyer to you. Because you have no right to even be in the courtrooms. You're trespassing. You had no right to change judicial department into judiciaries. You had no right to do that whatsoever. But you trespassed. You're in human rights violations all over the freaking place. We could arrest every one of you, but we're waiting for the people to do it. Okay? Right now, we got a bunch of inhabitants that are refusing to take an oath or affirmation to their country. So we'll just see what they do, and we'll see what happens if they get off their butts and do something about it. But going to war in Virginia, not the answer, guys. You can't murder your way out of a situation because the lawyers set all that up, set every bit of it up. Who do you think set up SPLC? Lawyers and psychiatrists. They go hand in hand. They both practice the same thing. Whenever it benefits them, they'll listen to everything they say. That psychiatrist says. If it does not benefit them, oh well, he's a crackpot. That's how they operate. The rules always benefit them, no matter what. Meaning the lawyers. So the very fact that your grand juries have been hijacked is why um, you don't have any protections, and your local governments have been run amok. That's why they're creating all kinds of private companies to do all the crap they're doing. That's why there's no evidence and they're stealing equity in houses. Didn't everybody know that they went around uh, and paid all the attorney generals off to not prosecute in foreclosures? They did that all over the country a long time ago. Don't prosecute the banks. They paid them all off, and nobody can get any justice there. Huh? There's no grand juries that can be formed. And when people do form them, they go out and they arrest every single one of them, every single time, because they don't do it correctly. They have no status. They're all inhabitants. They're foreign to their own country. They're foreign to the state. They don't get it. They don't understand it. We keep trying to explain it to them over and over again. They don't listen. So we stay with ours, government of the United States of America. We do what we can in our human rights tribunal, which, by the way, is really working well. And it's really moving quickly. And it's really, I'm impressed by how it's operating. These guys are really trying. They're doing their best to get some justice to people and get some of this stuff done. But if you're not going to listen to us, we can't help you. Okay? And we'll tell you step by step what to do as far as a grand jury is concerned on your local levels, county levels, let's put it that way. And if you guys can keep one know-it-all that may have studied some law for 20 years from hijacking your grand jury and realize this isn't about him and it's about him or her, it's about getting justice and getting things done, our human rights tribunal could try the case. Not a problem. And believe me, people don't see it, but that human rights tribunal means something, because this is what they did. Let's go back to the Graham case. The Texas folks over there were tried and convicted of multiple human rights violations. 2 days later, Graham was in a car headed towards a state hospital, and now they're trying to murder him. And guess what? The people of Texas, well, let's just put this, the inhabitants in Texas can't do a damn thing because your judicial power has been hijacked by lawyers. The same lawyers that you guys hire all the time to get out of traffic tickets and crap. They're running your lives. They're little dictatorships in every county. They have managed to change things to where people accept it. It's unbelievable what people are able to, or what people are accepting today. People are accepting being groped in freaking airports. It is unbelievable. Some stranger just walking up to you and just start filling you up. It is unbelievable what you will put up with. We have no idea why you're putting up with it, but you are. It makes zero sense to me. I won't fly because of it. There's no way they're going to sit there and feel me up, and I'm going to be like some kind of animal, or I'm going in some X-ray machine so they can, check out my junk and all this other crap. It's a bunch of pervs over there, and you know it. You know that they're selling those damn images on the dark web. You know they're doing it, and you're letting it happen, and you don't care for some reason. Don't know why. If you don't have any dignity left anymore, just tell everybody, okay, I don't have any dignity left anymore. And ladies, if you don't have any dignity anymore, just put a sign on your door. If you want to come do me, just come do me. Whatever. Just walk in and do me. Don't even bother with dinner. Okay? Just do me when you want. Just walk up and start doing me. Anybody that you want done to you. Men, you know, you don't have any dignity or respect for yourselves anymore. Fine, just say it. Yep, don't care anymore. Don't have any respect for myself anymore, and don't have any dignity left, and therefore do whatever you want. I don't care. I die soon, and once I get out of here, I'm done. I don't care. I don't have to deal with the problem. Okay? Because that's what we're seeing and what we're noticing. I'm not frustrated with it. I'm not frustrated at all with that. With people not doing that, just tell the truth. Just be honest with yourself and quit playing around like you're upset because you're not. If you were, you would do something about it. So now you have motive for violating. You got motive for violating the dignity of the grand jury. I would say call it a great jury. Same difference, different name. They can't claim that you're dealing with some kind of copyright from the lawyers or from the Masons. I still cannot understand why the Masons still exist in this country. Why they're allowed to exist. I don't understand why the FOP is allowed to exist. It's an illegal organization to exist. That's a fraternal order of police. Completely illegal for police to be a part of some freaking club. Highly illegal in their official capacity. But now the FOP, it's so bad, the FOP is up there giving advice. It's unbelievable what has happened and how far it's gone. And why isn't Northam arrested? Why aren't all those people in Virginia in the legislature arrested by the people? Why not? Sitting up there protesting isn't going to do any good. Having little, what do you call it? Little skirmishes with Antifa ain't going to do it. These little stupid fights you have in the streets, they're just stupid. It looks like a Jerry Springer show. If you're going to fight, have a fight. I mean, I'm just saying, you know. But it's all just skirmishes, and we're going to do this, and we're going to play, and it looks like a Jerry Springer show. Stupid drama, and it's embarrassing, by the way. It's embarrassing to watch. You're embarrassed for the people you're watching. So anyway, there you go. There's your problem. If you want to know how to fix it, just get a hold of us. Email the Secretary of State. We'll have a meeting with you. We'll tell you exactly what to do. We're not going to argue with you. If you're going to argue with us, we're not going to argue with you. We're just going to shut up and go away. Because we're tired of arguing with anybody. We're just not going to argue with people anymore. We're done with that. If you don't want the help, don't call. So anyway, thanks for listening to the 164th broadcast of the T-Roh Show. We hope you enjoyed it, and we hope that you learned something, and we hope that one day we'll see the people take action for the future generations. Just keep in mind that grand juries can get rid of child sex rings. They can get rid of trainee story time. They can get rid of all this other LGBTQ crap for the month with all these people having sex on the streets and everything else. Okay? There's a lot you can clean up, and that's how the people do it. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.